Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Hard Truth Distilling Company in Brown County, Indiana.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, it's time!
3 on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game!
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Float game for the win! Ayler's gone. Goodbye. Touchdown, Indy. Woo! IU. America. They got a football team now.
Pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Now, from the Hard Truth Studios, here's Jim Coyle.
Hello, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Monday, the last show of 2024. Thanks a lot for being with us. We appreciate you, no matter where or how you're listening. One of our great affiliates like 97.7 ESPN, The Ref, always the right call, down in Evansville, covering all of our Southwest Indiana peeps. Up in the region on the voice of the region, 1230 AM, 104.7 FM WJOB, and in Fort Wayne on Fort Wayne's only sports station, 1380 The Fan. Keep it tuned right here throughout the day, no matter where you're going. They'll keep you locked in on all that you're looking for. Appreciate you joining us during these, still in the holiday season. Got New Year's Eve coming up tomorrow, and then, of course, New Year's Day, and the college football playoffs return after a brief hiatus. Looking forward to talking to Todd Leary today, in replace of Don. Don having the day off, celebrating the new year, I guess. But at least he got to call a win in his last game of the season as well for Indiana men's basketball as they get a win over Winthrop. We'll talk about that. In addition, Indiana still filling in with the portal. The Colts, unfortunately, lose to one of the worst teams in the NFL, and it shuts down their hopes of any playoff hopes. Went away with that. The Giants average 14 points a game this year. They're really bad. New York Giants. They stink. And the Colts gave up 44 yesterday. So craziness. Appreciate everybody on the Andy Moore Honda hotline as well. Great peeps like Tyrone down in Jeffersonville, Fred over in Easton, Pennsylvania, Donald in Atlanta, John in Cincinnati. Too bad we're not on WKRP. WKRP in Cincinnati. Heath down in Danville, Kentucky. Gritty down in Evansville. Got them all everywhere. Sean up in Muncie. Is it football season yet? That's funny. It's yeah. Well, I'll wait till Todd gets on to talk. Todd Leary joining us today instead of Don, and so I'll wait till he gets on to really get into the hoops. But Gritty pointing out 1 of 20 on 3-point attempts. Add that to the, what was it, 6 of 35, 1 of 20. That's 7 of 55. Just doing quick math in my head. I mean, what is that? 8%, 9%, something like that. Yeah, it's a problem. But like I said, I'll wait till Todd gets on to tackle that beast. There's plenty of other things going on. You've got the college football playoffs coming up, no doubt. The portal action still swinging. Indiana filling in with the portal. Plenty of guys you already know about. Let's see. I'm trying to look to see if anything new has popped in recent. I kind of took the weekend off, to be honest with you. A rarity, but I got to do that. So they did land the Jared Dawson kid from Louisville, another defensive lineman. Offensive lineman from James Madison. Was a 3-year starter at James Madison. That's a great pickup. So picking up a little bit of everything, several defensive backs. So Indiana filling in quite nicely, to be honest with you, from the portal, and the recruiting is going to pick up as well. So I expect things to be next year to be, status quo under this regime. And someone, I've seen at least one or possibly more people mention that Indiana is going to become the new Iowa, Wisconsin. Yes, I agree with that. They're going to win every year. Now, are they going to win 10 games every year? No. But they're probably going to be a threat to win 10 games every year. So, is there a show tomorrow? Fred asks. I just lost it already. Probably. Yeah, I think we'll probably have one tomorrow. So there's looking at the Andy Moore Honda hotline. Sean says he struggles to believe that a late night was the reason behind the benching. I'm assuming you're talking about Umar Ballo. We'll talk about more of that, like I said, when Todd gets on with us, as a matter of fact. So let's go ahead and take a quick break from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios, and we'll get Todd on, and we'll start talking about it. That's what you want to hear about. We've got plenty more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. We're back with it right after this break.
At Ben Davis Chevrolet and Ben Davis Ford in Auburn, we're your one-stop shop for all of your automotive needs. We have the area's best selection of over 300 vehicles, including new cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs. Plus a huge selection of pre-owned vehicles in stock. And if we don't have what you're looking for, we'll find it for you. We also have top-of-the-line service and parts, plus a collision repair center, and we're competitively priced on everything. For sales, service, collision, parts, and more, we do it all. Come see us today or visit us online at bendavischevrolet.com and bendavisford.com.
Enjoy healthy, delicious meals at home without the hassle with the Fresh Fork. Chef-curated, ready-made meals delivered right to your doorstep. Proudly fueling IU athletes and now available to you with a menu that's always fresh and diverse, from hearty proteins to fresh salads. The Fresh Fork empowers you to make better food choices without compromising. Let the Fresh Fork help transform your lifestyle for a healthier way of living today at thefreshforkonline.com. Use promo code RADIO20 and get $20 off your first order.
Country living is just a swing away. It can be hard to find the exact home that fits your family's needs, so there couldn't be a better time to build a new home with Property Shore Construction. Now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revestco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com.
Ugly Grouper, located on beautiful Anna Maria in Florida, is the place to be, and not just because they have unforgettable meals, including locally sourced seafood. The Ugly Grouper has your favorite craft beers and cocktails, along with live music every day. The Ugly Grouper is family-friendly, able to host private parties, and has the biggest grouper you've ever seen. The Ugly Grouper is the place to be on Anna Maria Island, Florida. Tell them Indiana Sports Beat sent you. Go to theuglygrouper.com for more information. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're coming to you here on this Monday of New Year's week. And what better way to start it than with Todd Leary? New year. It's a new day coming up, but we've got 2 days before that. How was your weekend, man? I've got you muted. There we go. My bad.
There we go. It was a good weekend. It was good. I didn't do a whole lot, but it was pretty good.
Did you watch any of the games, any of the football games?
I did. The games were average, I would say. I don't think there was any real great football games this weekend.
No, but the thing that has just leaped out at me, if they had done this the way they should have and not screwed around with the rankings and the seeding being so off because of SMU and Boise State getting those buys, those teams would have been in the bottom two of the bottom four. And that means it would have left Indiana at number 8 to host a game, but they would have hosted a game against, say, a Boise State or Arizona State. It would have been all of those. I think it would have been 4 good games had they not screwed it up, and they wouldn't have had those. Now, those blowouts might have happened the following week. I don't know, though, because none of those games would have been on campus sites. So it would have been interesting to see how it worked out.
Yeah, the thing I don't love about the way it's done right now, and I'm sure it's got a lot to do with TV money and all of that, but they've just got it strung out too far. They should have been playing this weekend, and I won't be saying that on January 1st, December 31st, because I'll enjoy watching those games then.
Right.
But the fact that the championship game is on January 20th, that's like 2 weeks away from the Super Bowl. It's just so far out. And I don't like that side of it.
And not only that, and I don't know if there's anything they can do about this. Probably definitely not. But you think about the portal, Todd, these guys that they're using, that's the timeline.
Sure.
And so they have to enroll in their new school for that next semester. And I don't know exactly when the semester starts, but I'm going to guess it starts before January 20th.
Well, and I'm just going to say it this way. And all the big brains that do this stuff are way smarter than me. But I feel like it's just a huge oversight at the fact that they let the transfer portal be open prior to all teams being done with their season. There's not a argument you can make in the world that has any common sense whatsoever that makes that make sense. And it's unfair. It's unfair to the teams that are still playing, that everybody wants to still be playing. So it's not like they're being penalized for that. But the fact that the portal exists prior to all the teams being done with their season is an absolute oversight and complete mistake from the NCAA's perspective, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's just so many issues that has come along because of this. And it's one that I don't know can be fixed because of the need to be enrolled in the school. And these coaches and teams, they want them for spring football to be able to be in that spring semester. And
it can be fixed because we took 2 weeks off between the Purdue game and when the other game ended up being. They don't need 2 weeks off. Play that game the next week.
Yeah.
And then there's 10 or 14 days in between the next game after that. They don't need. So the teams that got to bye are going to have basically an entire month off. And that's not like no sports franchise in the world has a thing where there's a entire month off. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. They don't need a month off. Like, get the season over with. And then, like, they could have it all done. The championship game should be on January 1st. End of story. That's just, there's no, I don't think there's any argument beyond that, because then you fix the idea of transfer portal, and everyone knows January 1st the portal opens, or January 2nd the portal opens, and everybody can be enrolled in their new school or whatever they need to do. Like, that seems pretty easy of a fix to me.
Yeah, I agree. But unfortunately, it's something that won't be changed until after next season, because the current contract is set up this way. So we're going to have this again next year. And so there will be more complaining next year of if the SEC doesn't get 14 teams in, even though there's only 12 slots, they're going to want 10 of them. But it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of these games go. And all this talk about Indiana and all that, and all these other schools, and they didn't belong. I'm like, okay, Indiana lost by 10 in a road game. Well, there's already two teams that are double-digit underdogs on a neutral site. So I'm like, why are you complaining about? I don't get, what is it you expect from a lower seed team to go on the road in that environment, but yet they're supposed to overcome that. And I mean, it's not that they can't, but it should not be an expectation. And when it doesn't happen, it should be understood instead of used as a punching bag.
Yeah, I agree with you, except for I sort of don't agree with you in that you're basing that comment kind of off of Kurt Herbstreit, and then there's a whole faction of people that kind of feel that same way. But like, that's not how everybody feels, and that's not how we can't say everybody feels that way. And it's just a situation. You're not going to make everybody happy. Like, no. I think we say that a lot about a lot of different things, but I don't think we actually take it to heart and mean it, because you're not going to make everybody happy, and you're going to have to deal with the people that are not happy expressing their opinion of not being happy. Kurt Herbstreit just happens to have a media where he can voice it to a whole bunch of people, and people that are not Indiana fans might jump on board and be like, yeah, they shouldn't have been there. They got blown out. I know they lost by 10, but they scored 2 touchdowns in the last minute and a half or 2 minutes. So they really were down 27-3 for the majority of that game. And I'm an Indiana fan. I'm not bad mouthing us. I don't think it was our game that we played well enough to win that game. And so we didn't deserve to win that game. And I loved our season. I loved everything that happened with it. It's a great story. It's great for college football. I'm surprised Kurt Herbstreit took the approach that he did, because it's great for the sport in general. And we were just lucky enough as Indiana fans that it was Indiana that was the team that got to be that Cinderella story this year. We see it almost every year in some sport, and we were super fortunate and lucky for it to be Indiana this year.
Yeah, and I think college football is better for it.
100%, no doubt about it.
I don't know if – I think Coach Cignetti did two things. He added to it, and he detracted from it at the same time. But you know what? But he caused a lot of attention. How much attention? Oh, my God. The attention that Indiana got just because of the football program. I've said this before. I would love to see a dollar number next to all of the extra marketing they receive because of the 3 hours of game day at home, 4 more hours of game day at Ohio State, 4 more hours of game day at Notre Dame. Think about that. Just those 3 that are commercials. Now, then you add in Fox, and I could not, in the course of doing my job and all the post-production stuff, there's no place you could turn and not see Kurt Cignetti. Right. Yep. People that I have no idea who they are doing things on Indiana football. I was like, oh my God, this thing is it was a wildfire.
Yeah, like I like the fact that he talks trash and tries to back it up. Like I like that. Like Nick Sirianni with Philadelphia Eagles. He's not a super likable dude, but I like the fact that he talks trash and he's not backing down from it. Like he talks crap and he goes out and tries to back it up. And I like that. I like that side of it. I don't mind that. And Coach Signetti, I think did so many good things for the university and for himself and for all the players. Like he upped the value of those players so much. And that's something you can never put a dollar sign next to, but it's a big dollar sign. And you just I like everything that's happened out of the whole situation. Now, the fun part is now we get to go see it happen again. You said all along he wasn't going anywhere, and I said all along he was for sure going to an SEC school. And so I'm so glad you were right in this situation, and I'm glad that we get to see how that's going to play out and back it up in year 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and down the road. So that part of it just makes next year exciting and fun. Look, when's the last time you and I on December 30th were still talking about football at Indiana University, especially the day after there was a basketball game yesterday?
Todd has been doing this show for almost as long as it's been on, and the answer to that question is never.
Never. Yep.
Never. So, yeah, it was great. It did suck that it came to an end before all the bigger bowl games, but that's part of it. That's part of being in the playoffs. And I think that they're going to be – I think that they end up in the playoffs again next season. It's going to be tough, though, because they have 3 really hard road games, and this is just talk. I'm not previewing next year, but they've got to go to Penn State, Oregon, and Iowa. They have to win one of those games for 2 reasons to me. They have to show that they are not just going to beat the teams that they are supposed to beat, and they're going to need to win one of those.
They're going to need a signature win.
Yeah,
I think next year they're going to need that signature win because, I think Kurt Herbstreit's entire argument, was who did Indiana beat? And I think he got that from Nick Saban. If you watch College Game Day all year long, that's what Nick Saban said. From midway through the season on, he said that every single week. And that
drives me nuts.
That was him lobbying to get Alabama into the playoffs. And I get we would do that too. Like if that was Coach Knight in that situation years ago, he would have been doing the same. Like they'd have been lobbying to get their former team in that scenario. So I get that, respect it, understand it. But the part of it that I would love to say to Kurt Herbstreit is Ohio State only had 1 good win. They beat Penn State and barely beat Penn State.
Oh, we could go on about teams that didn't have big wins.
Right. Yeah. And so
my bigger thing
was silly.
My biggest thing is, who did they not lose to? They did not lose to
they didn't lose
Northern
a game
Illinois.
They should have won. Right. They didn't lose a game they should have won.
And I look at Alabama with 2 of those. Now, the Vanderbilt, that's a shocking loss, but Vanderbilt was a lot better than your Vanderbilt or normal. But Oklahoma, in the last game of the season, you score 3 points. I'm sorry, there is no way on God's green earth that that's a team that I would say is worthy of the playoff.
I agree with you, but let me ask you this. If right now, if you were forced to put your entire life savings on a game, on the bet between Indiana and Alabama, would you be willing to bet against Alabama?
Not after seeing Indiana play against the bigger boys.
Agree. So you can make the argument. I get their argument. I get what they're saying. The SEC is kind of in a bad situation because almost all their teams are good. Like, I'm not an SEC fan. I like Georgia, obviously. But beyond that, I root for Alabama to lose every game. And my mom will probably cut me off after saying that because she loves Alabama. But I do not like the SEC, but I get their problem. Their problem is every week. The reason I love the SEC is because they provide me a good game to watch every single week. And there's an argument for that. I get what they're saying. The problem with Kurt Herbstreit's saying what he said was he's an Ohio State guy and he's kind of sticking up for Ohio State. And they didn't have any good wins either. The Big Ten struggled in the good win situation. Penn State definitely didn't have any good wins. So any signature wins, I should say. All wins are good wins. Coaches will all tell you going on the road and winning's hard. Yes, it is. I get it. But they didn't have any signature wins that you can just put your stamp on. That this team deserves to be in the playoffs.
And then you look, though, at Indiana was expected to have the reigning national champion on their schedule, which they did, and the runner-up. So you're looking at that going, and they play Ohio State. You're like, damn, that's a loaded schedule they got. They've got to go to UCLA, which, you don't know who's going to be what.
Right.
Control that, because Indiana has had the toughest schedule prior to that when they played in the Big Ten East. We all know that that can't be dealt with. But next year won't be an issue. They will have that opportunity, and I think that they've got to grow and learn from those big games and big events, because they're going to be in them again next year. We've got to take a break. The great Todd Leary is with us from myjumpshot.com. Make sure you go to myjumpshot.com. If you have a kid, know anyone that could use some help with their basketball fundamentals, especially shooting, besides Indiana.
Yeah, no kidding.
Besides their, what have they shot lately? In the last 2 games, I think like 7% on 3-point shots. We'll talk
it's
about
not good.
With the great Todd Leary on the backside when we come back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company's studios. Right after this break. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com. Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's C-O-Y-L-E, to receive a discounted fundraiser. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Realty at cheryl@IndyHomePros.com or 317-701-0838. 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore help you find the home you want today.
At Ben Davis Chevrolet and Ben Davis Ford in Auburn, we're your one-stop shop for all of your automotive needs. We have the area's best selection of over 300 vehicles, including new cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs. Plus a huge selection of pre-owned vehicles in stock. And if we don't have what you're looking for, we'll find it for you. We also have top-of-the-line service and parts, plus a collision repair center, and we're competitively priced on everything. For sales, service, collision, parts, and more, we do it all. Come see us today or visit us online at BenDavisChevrolet.com and BenDavisFord.com.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday of New Year's week. Got big New Year's Eve plans? I know you. I know what your big plan is going to be in bed before 10.
Yep, I haven't seen that ball drop, and I can't even tell you how long.
It's not as big as it's cracked up to be. I remember I had a good friend that's no longer with us, but he used to call that rookie night. He's like, no, I'm not going anywhere. So that's rookie night.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Indiana basketball gets another win, Todd, but it is another win that reminds me all too familiarly of last season. They beat Winthrop 77-68, a single-digit victory again over a team that they probably should have handled a little easier. Not that Winthrop's not a good basketball team, but when you're looking at the comparison, this is a game that with 3 minutes left was a 1-point game by Indiana. And of all people, led by, I don't want to know if I should say led by, but Langdon Hatton, who came in for an unexpectedly voided Umar Ballo's spot. But Hatton pulls down 11 rebounds in a game that was probably as big as anything for the Hoosiers.
Well, I'll be honest with you, that's what I think is the bright spot of the game, and especially of a game like that heading into Big Ten season. You get a guy with a little bit of confidence like that, and rebounding is such a big factor. And I think Ballo's biggest asset for Indiana is his rebounding, and you know that void was filled by Hatton yesterday, and that's a good sign. That's a good thing. I don't really look at who they played and how close of a game it was as much. I do a little bit, but not as much as I do how Indiana played and how they're playing, together and with each other on the floor. And that I think if you looked at, December 30th, where Coach Woodson and the whole staff wanted this team to be at this point as far as the cohesive group, I don't think they're where they want to be or where they expected to be. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because there's plenty of time to go left in the season. The meat and potatoes of the season that really matters is what's in front of them, and that's a good sign. But I think they've got to start playing well together. And I say this every year, and I'll probably always say it because it's something I've learned over the years of watching all sports and all teams play is very few teams ever start the season out and play well together and do that throughout the whole season and then end up going on and winning a national championship or a Super Bowl or whatever it is. And they all have to have some bumps along the road, and they all have to deal with injuries, and they all have to deal with guys not playing well and shooting slumps and all different kinds of things. And the thing that we can hang our hat on and hope for is that this team is kind of grinding its way through the tough part, and they're going to hit their stride in February and March when they really need to. Now, they can't lay an egg in January because then you're not going to make the NCAA tournament anyway. But they've got to just continue to get a little bit better each game. And the thing I think I talk about the most on your show is the consistency. Like, they've got to have more consistency. You can't have games where Rice has 23 and then 4 and then 21 and then 6. Like, he needs to have 13 every game. And he needs to distribute the ball. And he needs to – and I'm just using him as – Trey Galloway can't have games where he has 14 and then 1 and 0. And we just can't have that. And you're going to have a game or two like that. You can't have it be, half of the games. You can't go for 15 and then 0 and then 15 and then 0. You can't continue to do that. So that's where I think they've got the most growth and stuff they've got to work on the most is being consistent and being able to play well together. I still don't think at this point they've played very well together on the court. And that's a sign of a team that's not played very much on the floor together. And I think we all would have hoped they would have played a little better at this point in the season. But we've got the important part of the season in front of us. So that's the good side.
Yeah, I don't disagree with some of that. The one thing is getting them, and they haven't played a ton together because they're mostly new, but
right.
That's the case with everybody now and every team. So the inability to get them there, that's the problem, because it shouldn't take that much. They've been together all summer. And we look at teams like Michigan or Ole Miss or wherever you want to look that also uses the portal and has used the portal to fill in or has a new coach and new teams that are playing well. It's just about the approach. Kurt Signetti. I mean, how far do I have to go? I mean, that's almost impossible to. Not only did he turn the Titanic with a couple of John boats, he turned the Titanic, which was thought to be impossible. So that's an issue of why they are not playing well together. So what are they not doing? And every game it has been something different.
Well, I don't, not to cut you off, but like I will say this. Like usually, like if you're going to talk about what's a team's identity, like what do they hang their hat on? Like Michigan State, you can always say over the years it's always offensive rebounding, and you can say Rutgers, it's always their defense and all that. I this point in the season, I can't identify what Indiana's, how you would describe them. Like,
that goes back to it wasn't that long ago. I was sitting in the press room when Mike Woodson was asked, "Hey, what is this team's identity?" And he said, "Don't know yet." Well, as soon as he said that, I'm like, dude, if you don't know, then who the hell's gonna know? Because I would have thought you would have had a direction that you wanted the team to go, and were welding them in that fashion.
Well, and to his defense a little bit, which he doesn't need to be defended, but I mean, what direction he wants them to go and what direction they're taking might not have been at that point in time on the same path. And so, like, he might have been honest as could be and saying, I'm not sure what our identity is, because I can tell you I'm not sure what our identity is right now. And that doesn't mean that you can't get on a roll and have one. I would love, obviously, with me, I would love our identity to be a up-tempo, fast-paced three-point shooting team.
Which is what they were supposed to be, according to Mike Woodson coming into the season.
I think we've proven that's not going to be the case.
No.
But so at this point, we just need them. We need them to, and I think the players. I think if you sat down with the players individually and you said, "Hey, what are you guys trying to accomplish? What is it you guys want to be out there on the floor?" I don't think you'd get the same answer from everybody, and that's a problem. Like that doesn't mean it can't be fixed. It doesn't mean a month from now they won't all give you pretty close to the same answer. But at this point in time, nothing has clicked for them. Nothing, or I shouldn't say nothing, because that's not necessarily true. But they've not clicked as a unit. They have not played well together. They've had spurts where they played well together. I don't know why. We can speculate on why Ballo didn't play yesterday, but I didn't hate it, because that's kind of the lineup I wanted to see anyway. I told you that before the season started. I wanted to see a more of a shooter lineup. I love the fact that Goody was the guy that started. And I love Trey Galloway as a human being, as a person. I love his family and all of that. But if he can't produce more outside scoring, then they're going to have to figure out a lineup that is going to produce that, because right now they need him to be a consistent scorer. And I don't think the coaching staff would probably agree with that statement. I'm probably not sure Trey would agree with that statement. But they need that. Like, they really do. They need someone that they can't. Mbako, I thought, was going to be that guy. But he's been pretty up and down. Like, they've all been up and down. Like, I just keep saying the same thing over and over again. Like, they're all inconsistent. And until they gain some consistency, that's why Calbert Chaney was as good as he was. That's why Damon Bailey was as good as he was. Those guys were consistent. You knew what you were going to get from them day in and day out. And Indiana doesn't have that right now. Ballo's rebounding is pretty much the only thing you can count on every single game. That and Renew getting in foul trouble.
Yeah, 12.7% that I calculated on their last 55 three-point field attempts, which have come in the last two games. They've been putting up a lot more. They put up 35 in a game that maybe they probably shouldn't have, and then they put up 20 yesterday, but they hit one. They hit one shot out of 20. I think that I could hit one or two blindfolded, or I know someone mentioned earlier, you could hit more than that left-handed today. How are they that poor at hitting shots? When it's this consistent, there has to be something more behind it than bad luck.
Well, yeah, and I agree with you. And I will say, like, I've been an advocate of them having a shooting coach for many, many seasons now. And it's not just Mike Woodson's regime that this team has not shot the ball well. It's been
this has been going on for 8 years.
This has been a while. And until I firmly believe until that they make it a strong coaching point, because I can tell you, I have talked to Mike Woodson personally about it, and this was a couple years ago. This wasn't like it was yesterday, and I can tell you, he told me that shooting wasn't the problem, and so I can physically tell you that because he said it right out of his mouth to me, not hearsay. And so I just, until they make it a point to become better shooters, I don't think they're going to become better shooters. You don't just become a better shooter because you think you want to be a better shooter. Like, you got to put the effort into it. And I say this all the time. This is why myjumpshot.com exists, because like, I love golf. You know, I love golf. The PGA Tour, the best golfers in the world, Scotty Scheffler, Tiger Woods was the best example in the world. Those guys have swing coaches that watch their swing and can pick up some tiny little thing that they're doing different or wrong that might help them out in a tournament. And they don't just practice with them in the off season. They practice with them every single week. And
a lot of them go on some of the events they're playing in with them.
Well, almost all of them do. Almost all of them have their swing coaches with them, especially at the majors. Like, they're always there at the majors, but they're almost always with them at different events throughout the year, especially if things are not going well. And like, why would you not think that translates over into shooting the basketball? It's so similar. I'm shocked that more people don't take that as a. I mean, these golfers are paying big dollars to swing coaches to come and do that, and obviously it pays off. Why wouldn't basketball play? And some do. Some professional players do. But at this level, I think, especially with NIL and all that, I think players need to start hiring shooting coaches and getting them to be there with them.
There's always a fear, for whatever reason, for people to mess with someone's shot, no matter how jacked up it might be.
That's so 1970, it's not even funny. Like, that's why I know the Tiger Woods analogy. Yeah,
I understand that, but it seems like there's still a fear because you don't see anybody do it. It's like I think back to everyone kept wanting to blame when Romeo Langford was his thumb. I'm like, that's horse crap. I said, if you want proof, what was the first thing the Boston Celtics did when they got a hold of him? They took a ping pong paddle and they taped it to his left hand because of his shooting. It had nothing to do with his thumb. And so they're trying to make a correction.
Well, like I'll get you, to your point of not wanting to mess with things. Like, I'll give you a great example, and it's not IU related, it's Purdue related, actually. Braden Smith, who he's my favorite basketball player to watch play in college basketball. I really enjoy watching him play. He controls the entire game. I just really enjoy it. He's a pretty good shooter. He's an inconsistent shooter, and the reason he's inconsistent, I could fix in 5 minutes. Like, I could make him a consistent, good, probably the best shooter on their team, including Fletcher Lawyer. I could probably make him the best shooter in the Big Ten in 5 minutes. And teams would not want to mess with a guy's shot because of exactly what you said. It's kind of 1970s thinking. We've always heard that and thought that. We'll work on it in the offseason. We don't want to mess with it during the season. That is such crap. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. If a guy's making, am I going to go mess with Steph Curry's shot? No. He makes it all the time. Like, his percentage proves he doesn't need to be messed with. And other guys don't fall into that category. There's like 5 guys in the world that fall into that category. Everybody else should take all the instruction they could possibly get from people who know what they're talking about. And I'll tell you, I'm not the only person that knows what they're talking about. There's a lot of good shooting coaches out there. But I can watch guys shoot, and for whatever reason, I think it's my God-given gift. Like, I can tell you how a guy can improve his shot just by watching him from the sidelines. It's not very difficult, in my opinion.
Well, and that makes complete sense because you have been through the training. You were always
And
a
I've
great
studied.
shooter.
I've studied
and
it.
You
Like
study
that,
it, and yes.
I mean, I appreciate you saying that. But yeah, I was given the gift. I have good touch. Like players that have good touch, it's really easy to work with them and all that. But guys who don't have good touch, I can still you can still make them really good shooters. That like not every guy that's a good shooter has good touch. There's guys with terrible form that end up being pretty good shooters just because they practice and repetition the same thing all the time. And you can improve guys like that a bunch, but I've studied it to the point where I'm shocked there are not more. I'm shocked there's not more teams that are employing shooting coaches that are real. The NBA does it. Why don't colleges do it? That's the part of it I don't understand. I know there's rules of how many coaches can work with a player and all that, but blah blah blah. They get around.
Yeah,
that
but
all the
you
time
know what?
in different ways.
It's changed so much. So hopefully that will
just
change
because
as well.
you're a good shooter doesn't mean you can teach someone else to be a good shooter. I always say that. Just because you're a good golfer, I'm a pretty good golfer, but I'm not very good at teaching somebody else how to play golf because I don't know the technique. I have the athletic ability to be able to make myself play well, but I can't teach somebody else how to play well in golf. But I can in basketball, and that's the part of it that that's the part of IU that bothers me because me as Todd Leary wants IU to be a good shooting team, and they're not, and there's just that's I struggle with that because I'm a fan of that team and I want that team to be a good shooting team, and they've not been for a long time, so it bothers me.
Yeah, and there's no reason because they have the guys like Mackenzie Mbako, Luke Goody, among others that could shoot the ball if they were really in that form, especially if they had someone that was working on specifically that. We've seen that Calbert Chaney has helped Umar Ballo at the free throw line, but obviously they need a lot more help at the 3-point line than the free throw line right now because the trade in points is substantial.
Yeah, but the free throw line is a big deal. Like Omar
Ballo,
of course. I mean, he's going to shoot so many free throws. Like that's a dude that improving his free throw shooting is a big deal for that team. So yeah, I mean, Calbert's awesome. Obviously, Calbert has the best touch of anyone I've probably ever seen. It doesn't always translate into being able to, if you haven't studied it, and I'm not saying he hasn't because maybe he has, but I'm just saying like I've studied it to the point where I can just watch a guy and I can probably give him 3 things he could do different or better and practice on and become a better shooter. And that's, it's not going to happen at IU. I've come to the point, like, I understand that's not going to be the case, but I'm going to catch on somewhere. And when I do, that team's going to be a good shooting team. I promise you.
Yeah. Well, you have the desire. You love it.
I do love it.
It's a great, and that's what is a big thing. And so hopefully this team can find that because they're about to enter now the
gauntlet
Big Ten season, and it is going to be a meat grinder. There are 8-9 teams that are going to be fighting for the teams that come out of the Big Ten Conference this year and make it to the NCAA tournament because it's going to be tough. I don't this particular Indiana team I see going upside down. I don't see them going 500 in the league, and I think that's going to be kind of a Mendoza line of whether or not that you make it to the NCAA tournament this year. I don't think you can be under 500 in the Big Ten and make it in personally.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, with where their net ranking is, and this has been proven over the years, but where their net ranking is right now, if they're not 500, you're right. They're probably not going to get in. And I'm not saying that I don't think they're going to be 500 because if you go down and look at the schedule, I probably do think they're going to end up over 500. But I always look at it with the glass almost full, not half full, like almost full, because I think they're going to get better. I think that every game, I think that's going to be the game it clicks. And that's just the Indiana basketball optimist in me. But
such the optimist.
I know it. That's what they say about me.
Well, I hope you have what's your optimistic view for 20? Oh my God, this sounds like Will Robinson in Lost in Space. 2025 coming up. I feel like I should be donning a space helmet when I say just saying that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what if I would have told you last year? What if I would have said, I think Indiana football is going to make the playoffs next year? you just said, well, we're not having you on the show anymore. We're going to have your head examined for something. But yeah, I mean, I think in some way, shape, or form, this team's it's gonna click for them. And when it does, I think Mike Woodson will stand at midcourt with the double bird up to everybody.
Well,
saying the true fans can kiss it.
Well,
I shouldn't say that because
I'm sure a lot of fans would be fine with that if it happened. But from what we have seen this season, they are in the same position that they were a year ago with these single-digit wins over sub-200 KenPom teams. That is just going to be too much to overcome. It was too much to overcome last season in conference play for them. This season is even tougher. You've added 4 teams, but 2 of which are probably going to be losses. Oregon is looking really good. UCLA is really good, although they do get Oregon at home. That's going to be a tough ball game in addition to the many other tough ones.
They're all going to be tough. Like, if I asked you right now today, who do you think – give me the top 3 teams in the Big Ten. I won't even make you pick the winner. Give me the top 3 teams in the Big Ten.
Michigan, Illinois, UCLA.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with, as much as I love Dusty May, I don't think Michigan's going to be up there. I just think I love their team. They're actually one of my favorite teams to watch play. I love the 2 big guys. But I mean, I just think with all the road games and all that, I don't think their guard play is good enough, to be honest with you. But I mean, I agree with you. With UCLA is going to be tough because their defense is so good. And Illinois, obviously, they're just super talented and all that. I honestly couldn't tell you. I mean, if Rutgers won the Big Ten, it wouldn't surprise me. If Rutgers didn't finish 500, it wouldn't surprise me. Like, it's just this season's going to be. It's going to be interesting.
It certainly will be. Brother, happy Thanksgiving. Gee whiz. Happy Thanksgiving. Merry Christmas. And Happy New Year to you and Jessica and et al. Everyone. Enjoy it, man. We'll see you again on Friday. So we'll see you at the end of this year and at the beginning of next year. Perfect.
We get to see Rutgers play on Thursday, and we'll talk about it on Friday.
That'll be something. Todd Leary from myjumpshot.com. Make sure you go there, hit it up. You know what you need it for. We've got more coming up, including the great Greg Rakestraw from the ISB Sports Network. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this break from the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios. Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. Hoosier Hanks East, located on College Ball Road in front of Kroger in Bloomington, is everything you could want. Great food like their custom pizzas, wings, wraps, unbeatable daily drink specials, live music on Fridays, and Hoosier Hanks East is home to Inside Indiana Football and Inside Indiana Basketball coaches shows hosted by Don Fisher. Be on the lookout for Hoosier Hanks ticket giveaways to Indiana and Colts games on social media. Stop by and meet Hoosier Hank at Hoosier Hanks East on College Ball Road in Bloomington. Hungry for something a little different? Well, head to the Rusty Gator Fork and Ale in Bedford, where oceanic flavors meet southern charm with a Cajun flair, like their loaded voodoo fries, gator bite, or jambalaya, and so much more. The Rusty Gator also has live music each Friday and Saturday night with some of the best local and regional artists around. Visit the Rusty Gator Fork and Ale in Bedford and get your Cajun on. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Realty at Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com or 317-701-0838. 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore help you find the home you want today. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Monday, New Year's week. And welcome in Greg Rakestraw from the ISB Sports Network. Greg, a busy weekend. I know you were up at the Hall of Fame Classic, man, for some great games, no doubt. Some great teams. You had Braylon Mullins there. We have the return of Trey Singleton from Jeffersonville, albeit probably a little too late. They probably didn't. I'm assuming that Sharon did not want to play him in that game since he didn't play until the second half. Is that right?
No, I'm sure he was on a minutes restriction would be my guess. And so the idea was to wait until half number 2. Trey ended up playing 13 of 16 minutes in the second half. And again, team played exceedingly well when he was on the floor. And the way that I look at Jeffersonville, they're now 5-4 because Trey did not play the second game. And I wouldn't have done that either. Said first game back after breaking a bone in his foot, he played 13 minutes. All right, now you see if he can play again this weekend. I'm not sure they'll play him back-to-back nights. Jeff plays host to Eastern on Friday, then comes up to Lawrence North on Saturday. And so, I'm not sure if he'll try to play both nights or you simply save him for one. If you're going to play him one, then frankly, I play him against Lawrence North.
Right.
Like you saw them in the semi-state last year, and you hope to see them again in the semi-state round this coming year. But the way he is one of the best passing bigs I've ever seen in high school basketball.
Wow.
The way that he sees the floor at 6'8" makes everybody around him better. But as you've heard me say, they've got 2 other Division I level players on that team in PJ Douglas and Michael Cooper. This may sound counterintuitive. I thought Cooper was great defensively on Braylon Mullins in the first game. Braylon scored 39. Coop was still really good against him defensively. They're both going to be players at Wright State next year. Without Trey Singleton, Jeff has wins against Cathedral, Attucks, and Warsaw this year. That's pretty impressive.
Yes.
And so really I think now it's about simply getting Trey healthy and whatever
was that without
is.
Were any of those without Trey?
What's that?
Were any of those without Trey Singleton?
No, all of those wins without Trey Singleton. That's what I'm saying. All of them.
That's
so again, they're gonna be fine as long as he's healthy. So it's really about just kind of working him back into the mix. And Jeff's got a shot to be a state championship team this year.
It's a good thing they're not in college football. They would not make the CFP, baby.
Thankfully, there's no top 12. All 400 schools that play boys basketball are going to make the postseason. They're going to be just fine.
And so it looks like there are a couple of teams that have a shot to win. Obviously, Fishers is a juggernaut that has just been rolling and continues to do so. But Jeffersonville is one of those teams that just hasn't been complete. I'm sure there are others that will give them a run for their money.
Correct. So, the 4 that you saw are all in different semis, are all in different regionals. So all 4 of the teams that played in the Hall of Fame Classic this year could be semi-state teams. Warsaw led Fishers for a good chunk of the game in the morning game. Did Fishers play their best? Probably not. But Warsaw had something to do with that, the way that they zone. And Warsaw is so well coached. We've got a handful of high school coaches in the state of guys that were college basketball coaches and said, you know what? I'd rather coach high school basketball. And Matt Moore is one of those guys. Matt was the head coach at Mount Vernon Nazarene that's in the great Crossroads League with Marion and Indiana Wesleyan and Grace and schools like that. Matt has now coached at Kokomo and Fishers and Warsaw. He left Fishers to go to Warsaw. It's going to be closer to home. He's from Columbia City, and he played at Grace College. Matt's really good. Warsaw's really good. Jeff has a chance, obviously, because Greenfield has the best player in the state in Mullins. They have a chance. They also got a player back in the rotation in Cooper Robertson, big kid off the bench. They now have a solid 7-man rotation. Mikey Johnson is a great athlete that plays opposite Braylon Mullins. Greenfield's going to be okay. They've now lost twice. They're going to be fine. Fishers is the favorite. Fishers probably isn't as deep as they were last year. They will play 8. Guys 7 and 8 are solid. One of them is Cole Sigler, whose dad, Jim, played at Jeffersonville for Mike Broughton back in the 90s, was on their team that reached, the Final Four for the last time in 1995. And so, Fishers is so good at the guard positions and are so fun to watch moving the basketball. They're the best team in the state. They're not unbeatable. I think the Warsaw game kind of proved that. But Jim, here's the best stat I can give you about Fishers. They had 31 field goals in the game against Greenfield Central. They had assists on 25 of them. The way that they share the ball, move the ball, and shoot the ball is a sight to behold. Justin Kirby's going to play at Miami of Ohio. He's a senior. They've got 2 other Division I guards in Cooper Zachary and Jason Gardner Jr. They're both sophomores. Gardner is phenomenal around the basket. Zachary has Mullins-like range in terms of anywhere from 30. He feels he can knock it down. The pieces fit so well, and they're so well coached at Fishers. I'd say those 4 and Lawrence North are your top 5 in 4A. Maybe you would throw Carmel in the mix because they are so well coached that they deserve a little consideration in there too. Although Wright's got them on Saturday afternoon. But this is a year where Fishers is the best team, but it could be one of many or one of anybody. It's a pretty balanced year in 4A.
And we know that Mullins is already one that got away, and it looks like that Trey Singleton is one of those that got away from the Indiana schools as well. I know that's hard to make that determination now, but boy, he sure seems to have a big upside to him. As you mentioned, not just big 6'8", 6'9" kid, but a great passer on top of the other things that he has. That's just another tool in the toolbox, man.
Well, hey, you got to remember, you can always go the Luke Goodyear route, get him the second time around. And to be fair, Trey's recruiting really took off this summer. Braylon Mullins was already at a national level. He then went to like a top 5 program at a national level this summer. Yeah. Trey was more getting the Horizon League Mid-American Conference offers. Right. Nothing wrong with that. You're a heck of a basketball player if that is the case. But then his recruiting took another level. I first saw Trey, and you probably heard me talk about this a year ago. I first saw Trey and those guys at Jeff play against Kokomo. And I can't tell you how much fun they were to watch. Even though Kokomo won that game, you're on the road 150 miles from home in front of 5,000 people, and those kids were great in terms of sharing the ball and moving the ball. And Jeff kind of, they'll take and make threes, but Jeff plays more of an old school motion offense, like they're coached by somebody that played for Bob Knight. And there's a lot of mid-range game and post passing and high-low in watching Jeff play. And Singleton does all of those things exceedingly well. Frankly, PJ Douglas does those things well too. Trey's just 4 inches taller than he is in terms of those passes, from the high post. So they're a fun team to watch. And again, fingers crossed he's able to get fully healthy by the time we get to the first week of March.
Well, and it looks like it could be a fun and exciting Hoosier hysteria this year, as there are several teams that are going to be in the battle with several good players. It would have been great to see Jeffersonville and Greenfield Central go at it with both teams fully healthy, because that game probably may have turned out a little different.
It did, but you know what? It was a relatively even second half with Trey on the floor, so it's certainly possible. But again, Mullins is so good and is so clearly the Mr. Basketball. Unfortunately, I don't see them again until the regional round of the tournament. Hopefully, I see them in the regional round of the tournament. The team that has been the biggest thorn in their side in New Pal, they've already beaten them once, and frankly, they're in 3A this year because, again, the shrinking of 4A, you've got some teams that would be statewide contenders like Attucks, Cathedral, New Pal, that are all now in the 3A draw and no longer in the 4A draw. And 3A is really good too, because up in the northern part of the state, South Bend St. Joseph has all kinds of talent. They were a state finalist last year, beaten by Scottsburg. And so they will be likely the team that comes from the northern half of the 3A bracket too. So again, it's shaping up to be a really good March Madness. And again, we got 2 solid months to enjoy before we get to that point.
The Colts, they're your kingdom for the Colts, but they had a shot at an outside shot to playoffs. I don't know what the other teams did yesterday that would have affected that, but it wouldn't have mattered. They were playing a I don't know, is it the worst team in the NFL?
Yes.
The Jets had scored averaged 14 points a game. They had a backup quarterback playing, and they give up 44 points. What the hell is going on?
A wretched performance, miserable tackling. It's a defense that's been more bad than good, but has had some moments that you kind of go, okay, seemingly trying to put, both sides of the football together has been the issue. In the days the defense has been great, like the Minnesota game on Sunday Night Football back in early November, late October, whenever that was the day the offense was just miserable. Well, the offense was pretty good yesterday, but you said it well. The Giants were clearly the worst team in the league. The Giants scored more points for the Falcons than they did for themselves the week before. They were averaging 14 points per game. The Colts allowed 45. One of that was on special teams. But on a day where you were playing for your season, that's the effort you give defensively. And that is a group that is largely a veteran group where you have brought back those pieces, and those guys have been with you for 4, 5 years or longer in some cases. Zaire Franklin's been here for 7. EJ Speed's been here for 6. Kenny Moore's been here for 8. And nobody defensively was worth a darn, and that's putting it nicely yesterday. So last year in the offseason, guys were extended, guys were brought back. And now what do you do? Now what do you change? Is it Gus Bradley? Is it Shane Steichen? Is it Chris Ballard? Is it all of the above? These are all fair questions to ask. And so, it's kind of like when you're watching for a new pope. We'll look at 56th Street, see if there's smoke coming out of somewhere. And knowing that the next game is inconsequential, that frankly, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of people at the game to see the Colts and Jaguars on Sunday. Pat McAfee came out last night and was very critical of the organization. And I think, to be blunt, I think Pat's word carries a lot of weight in that building in terms of the marketing, administration, ticket sales side of things. I think that might be a bit of a wake-up call for some people over there. So for the players and the coaches, you have a job to do. You got one more game to play. For those above that level, all eyes now go to 2025. And the question becomes, just how different do the 25 Colts look from the 2024 Colts?
Yeah, it's not, for me to call for a change here or there, but there's no question. I think change will be coming.
Right. And again, as I tell people, and I'll explain this on your show, when you listen to the Colts postgame show, it's the Colts postgame show. Not that we're talking about the Colts. It is owned by the Indianapolis Colts. I get a paycheck from the Indianapolis Colts to do that show. And so on the postgame show, I say, listen, here's the line we draw. I'll allow you to call in and complain and call for somebody's job. We are here. You are a direct conduit to the franchise through myself and Bill Brooks. You can speak your piece. There's a certain line that I will go to. I will criticize a coaching decision. I'll criticize players. We'll recap the game, etc. I'm not going to call for somebody's job or speculate for somebody's job.
No, because that would cost you your job.
Right. But again, that's just kind of the nature of it. And frankly, I would imagine the Colts are pretty unique in having that level of dialogue, in a network show. We have over 40 affiliates that carry 6 hours of game day coverage, through what we do. But is it fair to openly say, hey, these moves are under consideration? Yeah, I'm okay with saying that. And I think you are looking at everything right now if you work for the Indianapolis Colts.
No question. There's no choice. Greg Rakestraw from the ISB Sports Network. What's coming up this week?
So I've got a little small college basketball this afternoon. I've got IU Indy on Wednesday afternoon. We play on New Year's Day. And then high school basketball Friday and Saturday. So Friday night, Noblesville and Warren Central. I've already done the Cathedral Warren Central game. And then Cathedral and Carmel on Saturday night. So, for the most part, we are now through with these, multi-team, multi-game and event, days. We'll have some doubleheaders that we'll do, but now it's just, tracking these conference races. Maybe we get a couple of more county or city tournaments on the docket, but now everything is starting to ramp up towards the postseason, which for the girls is 5 weeks away, which for the boys is now 9 weeks away.
Greg Rakestraw from the ISC Sports Network. Make sure you're giving him a follow and be a subscriber to the ISC Sports Network. They provide you with tons of content in regards to the state of Indiana. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you as always.
Thanks, buddy. Talk to you in the new year.
Absolutely. Happy New Year to you and your family. Up next, the great Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star, Pacers beat writer, as they travel to Boston. So he becomes your cousin from Boston. Up next, right after this break, from the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum, Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive.
Country living is just a swing away. It can be hard to find the exact home that fits your family's needs, so there couldn't be a better time to build a new home with Property Shore Construction. Now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revestco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com.
Hoosier Hanks East, located on College Ball Road in front of Kroger in Bloomington, is everything you could want. Great food like their custom pizzas, wings, wraps, unbeatable daily drink specials, live music on Fridays, and Hoosier Hanks East is home to Inside Indiana Football and Inside Indiana Basketball coaches shows hosted by Don Fisher. Be on the lookout for Hoosier Hanks ticket giveaways to Indiana and Colts games on social media. Stop by and meet Hoosier Hank at Hoosier Hanks East on College Ball Road in Bloomington. Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer. Ugly Grouper, located on beautiful Anna Marie Island, Florida, is the place to be, and not just because they have unforgettable meals, including locally sourced seafood. The Ugly Grouper has your favorite craft beers and cocktails, along with live music every day. The Ugly Grouper is family-friendly, able to host private parties, and has the biggest grouper you've ever seen. The Ugly Grouper is the place to be on Anna Marie Island, Florida. Tell them Indiana Sports Beat sent you. Go to theuglygrouper.com for more information. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Monday before New Year's Eve. Thank you so much for being with us here at the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios. Welcome in your cousin from Boston, Dustin Dopirak, everybody's cousin. He is in Boston as the Celtics lose to the Pacers last night at home. How about the Pacers? You want to talk about a tough play? Is this if it's not the toughest place, it's got to be one of the upper toughest places in the league to win right now, Dustin.
Sure, no, absolutely. And wild that they managed to go from getting just absolutely trucked, 37 points on Friday night. Second night it was a brutal schedule. I mean, frankly, they played the Thunder at home on the 26th or on Thursday, basically go for a home road back-to-back, go to Boston and get just absolutely crushed. It was second back-to-back in the course of a week. Obviously, they had the Sacramento Golden State back-to-back, come home for Christmas, go have another one against, two of the top three teams in the league. And they get beat really bad, basically. And so, had kind of a day to recover. Didn't have time to practice or anything like that, come back and actually beat the Boston Celtics. So pretty remarkable turnaround in the course of a couple of days. Obviously, a lot of things factor in there. For one thing, Andrew Nembhard did not play the second night of the back-to-back. He's been dealing, obviously, with knee tendonitis. That's why he was out for 12 games in November. Well, really 12 in a row. To manage that, you don't want to put too much stress on him when it comes to these back-to-backs. And they're a different team with him right now. I mean, dramatically different team with him right now, and bringing him back helps, just connect a lot of things. They defended a whole lot better, dramatically better, and obviously Tyrese Halliburton's life got a lot easier too. Obviously, Nembhard takes a lot of pressure off him, and doing that, he really made a point to get downhill last night. I mean, that's something that he hasn't done nearly as much as he should. This year, I did the story on that last night. Up until last night, only 8.1% of his shots this year were within 3 feet. Last night, 10 of his 11 field goals he made were twos. A lot of those are layups. A lot of those are buckets going to the rim, and that really opened up a whole lot of other things. But really excellent offensive performance for them. Solid defensive performance. 123-114 win. Big deal, I thought, even just to get one of these games between these 4 games that they have between Christmas and New Year's. It's a brutal stretch. Obviously, it was Thunder, Celtics, Bucks on New Year's Eve. I thought they could play well and still get go 0-4 there. So they get one win. They win the season series with the Celtics. They played 3 against Boston this year. They've won 2 of those. Only team in the league that's beat Boston twice so far. So really big win for them, on a lot of counts. I mean, I had 2 tough losses. One, a close loss to the Thunder. The other one, an ugly loss to Boston. But then to rally from that, win this one. Now they've won 7 of the last 10. A team that's trajectory overall is really going up at this point.
Yeah, and that is great news for Pacers fans. And winning this series, it reminds you of winning the Milwaukee series a year ago. That kind of, although it was a little earlier in the year, it kind of propelled them. But to beat a team like this and to do it on their home floor, they beat them in every category. They outshot them. They out-rebounded them. They outshot them from 3. And Tyrese Halliburton, the guy that they needed to have to kind of lead them, did that. 31 points. On a night that they needed him to get that going. But this is a game that the Pacers controlled. It got close in like the third quarter there for a minute, but the Pacers did not falter. I was like, all right, there was 5 minutes left and they were up by whatever, like 7 or something, or not, maybe 8. I don't remember, but I'm like, okay, well, this is going to be an interesting 5 minutes for their season. And they held sway, and it didn't get closer. They did not falter. That is huge to get a win, because in the NBA, an 8-point lead with 5 minutes to go, that's an eternity. That's like giving the ball to Mahomes or Manning with 2 minutes to go and saying they need to score. It's going to happen, but it didn't. And for a team whose defense has been called into question as much as it has, that has to be a very, very bright spot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't know if it's my Wi-Fi or yours, but I missed a lot of that. But I thought key piece, Jason Tatum gets a 3-point play that gets Boston back within 2, basically. And at that point, basically everything seems like it's coming down on the Pacers' heads, really. I mean, you saw a lot of momentum going Boston's way. Celtics are getting downhill, crowds getting into it. A lot of things not going well for the Pacers at that point. Very next play, Halliburton gets downhill. And was devoted to do it. Basically, had 2 or 3, kind of chances when he was kind of driving, but kept getting the ball back, and finally got the matchup that he wanted. He was really hunting out switches, particularly last night. Gets a driving layup on Jason Tatum, kind of late clock, and that starts what's a 9-0 run by the next timeout. He follows that up with another drive where he tees up Ben Shepherd for 3. Then they get another stop. He gets a throw ahead to Ben Shepherd for a layup. And that little 9-0 run or 7-0 run puts them back up 9, basically when they were within 2. That turns into a 13-0 run basically out of the next timeout. And from that point forward, the Pacers are in control. And so that's a real moment. Bringing up your Brady's, your Mahomes, that's one of those moments. Boston really kills you with runs. That's really where, especially because they shoot the 3 ball so well. It's such a big part of their offense. They can slump for a while, but they can get right back at you because they'll hit 2 or 3 threes in a row. And that's kind of what happened. I mean, they had a 9-0, I think it was a 9-0 or a 7-0 run before that. I think it was a 9-0 run. Pacers were up 11. They get a 3-point play from Brown, a 3-pointer from Horford, and then a 3-pointer from Tatum, and they're within 2. And so to respond to that, take that punch, hit right back. Immediately, like next possession going right at you. Big moment there. Because again, that's the sort of stuff where the Celtics can really bury you. And they were close to doing that. And so for the Pacers to stand up, considering all they've been through this year, considering just what the last couple of months has been like, for them to step up in that moment is a big deal. Boston had their struggles. They missed some shots. They were without Drew Holiday. They were without Kristaps Porzingis, and that's rough. I mean, when they don't have Holiday, you were reminded just how good of a basketball player Drew Holiday is. I mean, he is absolutely special. The Pacers were really able to attack a lot of mismatches and just do a really good job of pushing the pace and getting buckets at a time when they needed to have them, continue to play their game, and not get rattled or really shaken off by that kind of Celtics run. That's, again, huge proof of their mettle, I think, in that moment. Showed, I thought, a lot of maturity for a team that sometimes hasn't had some, for a team that sometimes has shown some fragility. Stepping up in a stretch like that was a really big deal, and that's a moment I think they'll be able to call on later in the year.
Well, and it gets them closer to 500, one game under. They're 16-17. More importantly, even with that, they are just a game and a half out of being tied for the 6th spot in the Eastern Conference, which that's a little mind-boggling. And I'm sure that'll work out a little bit later on. But they're still very much alive in this playoff picture and just need to keep doing and improving the way they have been.
Yeah, sorry, this is you're coming through weird, but yeah, no, I think I think that puts them. They're in an interesting spot. I mean, I think obviously this stretch, you kind of knew that there was a chance that they could fall back. Just after a really good West Coast road trip, you knew, okay, this is a possibility where they could fade a little bit just because of how tough this is. But like I said, they're 1.5 back of the Bucks for 6th and the Heat for 7th. They're only 2 back of the Hawks for 5th. They're still within striking distance, down 3.5 to the Magic at 4th. So those are all teams that they could reasonably catch. I mean, the Magic are playing remarkable basketball considering what they've lost. They've missed Wagner and Banchero for extended periods of time. They're still hanging in there. It's a tough team, but it's not out of the question that they could rise up that far. So, they're I think in a good place. I mean, if they can continue to play consistent basketball over the next stretch, they have more of a chance to get some wins. I mean, Bucks obviously will be tough to get on New Year's, but following that, they have some games they can win. Big game at Miami on January 2nd. Following that, they've got Phoenix, a team they've already beaten. That's an opportunity at home. They go at Brooklyn. That's a game that they probably shouldn't have lost earlier this season. They should be able to, that's a game I think they can win. Obviously, they've beaten the Bulls already. They get Golden State back. That's a team they beat already. After that, they've got a road home back 2 and 3 days deal against the Cavs. That's obviously a tough deal, but they get Detroit and Philadelphia after that. There's some opportunities for some wins. There's a chance, I think, in early January for them to get on at least a little bit of a run and get some wins that get them back into the picture. The way they're playing, I think they should be able to win a bunch of those games if they can maintain this. Basically, if they can maintain their level, they can get the kind of stretch of victories that put you back, not just in the playoff picture, but in that sense where you're safely above that 6th line where you're avoiding the play-in. So if they can continue this, if they can get on a run and take advantage, if they don't backslide, and obviously they have a history of backsliding, so I'm not going to act like that's not possible for these guys, that they can suddenly fall into some problems. But if they can keep their Nemhards, their Neesmiths, their Shepherds healthy, which when they have that, they defend well, they move the ball well with those guys on the floor. So if they can continue that, I think they have a chance to put some good basketball together, string some wins together, and get themselves back where they really ought to be at this point.
What was, in your opinion, your opinion for why they're able to make this? That's a gigantic turnaround to get. And I know games get away. So the 37 points, especially against a great team, that can just happen. It happens at all levels, in all sports. Sometimes things just get away. But to do what they did, to go in there and get that win on the road after that beatdown, that's hard to accomplish.
Yeah, no, I mean, a big piece is Nembhard. I mean, he really is a big deal. And again, like he just, it's asking too much of his knees to ask him to play 2 back-to-backs in the course of a week. And so he, basically I asked Carlisle about that. I mean, does that mean there was some kind of backstep? He says, no, but that's, you're looking at 2 back-to-backs in 6 days. And he said, we saw signs that we had to give him a day off. Basically, we couldn't force this, and it could have been an issue if he did. But he does so many things well for them. And I think it's pretty remarkable how important he's been. I mean, he was plus 23 in the game last night. I mean, 17 points. I mean, but there's so many things that he does to connect the dots for them. First off, he's just been an excellent point of attack defender. And you really get past him, and there's a pretty big drop off, with Neesmith being out in terms of what they can get on defense. I mean, McConnell can defend you, but Ben Shepherd's a pretty good defensive player, but Nembhard's at a higher level. And again, when you're missing Neesmith, you really need Nembhard on the floor. He was on Tatum for a while. He was on Brown for a while. I thought he did a really good job on Jason Tatum. And again, he's given up size in that, and he was still making him work. And Tatum had a rough first half. I think he was 1 of 8 from the floor, and that's a big deal. But Nembhard he connects the dots so well offensively. I know Halliburton obviously faces so much defensive pressure. He's able to alleviate a lot of that by just the ball handling he does, the ability to attack that he gets. He's starting to get some gravity, and it's sort of forcing teams to deal with him and put less pressure on Halliburton. You're less frequently dealing with him, dealing with 2 bodies. So a lot of things. There's a lot of different ways that he makes a difference, and so not having him in that game really made it hard for them to defend on Friday. And getting him back, they were just dramatically better defensive team, dramatically better offensive team. Again, plus 23. When he was on the floor is a big deal. And so, I mean, he's really keyed a lot of this turnaround. They're a different team with him, really different team in terms of how he's playing, in terms of how he's playing basketball and how he kind of rises everybody else's level. But, I mean, I do think, obviously, again, just it being the second night of a brutal back-to-back, it's hard to concoct a nastier back-to-back than what they had. Thunder, basically – Thunder's the best team in the West. Celtics are the second best team in the East. And certainly that could be an NBA Finals. Thunder Celtics could absolutely happen. Obviously, Boston is more than capable of beating Cleveland. I think that's going to be your Eastern Conference Finals as much as the Pacers are heading in a good direction. And some other teams are too. I mean, I think Cleveland and Boston are clearly the class of the East. And I wouldn't be surprised, really think that's going to be an Eastern Finals. And Boston and the Celtics can certainly win it. They're a team that's got certainly the championship pedigree. And so saying, all right, you're going to play both teams they might end up in the finals on a back-to-back that's home road, that you have a flight in between there. That's a tough ask, especially coming off of Christmas, coming off of West Coast road trip before that. I know how tired I was, so I imagine how tired they were. And so, that makes a difference too. And Halliburton made a point of saying, though, in the fourth quarter, because we were sitting around talking about how we're going to respond, how we're going to do this differently. Halliburton in particular was saying, you know what, like I can get downhill more. And he just took a totally different approach. But the defense was better, offense was better. I think getting beat down that hard, obviously, certainly a sort of thing that wakes you up. If you play somebody within 10, you're like, yeah, we're not in too bad of a place. And when you get housed by 37, you're like, okay, guys, we're doing something wrong here. But I think a lot of other guys stepped up. And one guy that Rick Carlisle really mentioned was Jarris Walker. And he played dramatically better. I think, and Miles Turner, I asked him about that. And Miles said, we had a film session and Jarris was the centerpiece of a lot of that. Like there were a lot of film moments where basically Jarris got circled and called out, and that's not easy for a second-year guy. I mean, Jarris is like 20, and
not easy for any pro.
Yeah, I didn't hear you at all right there, but
I'm
like
sorry about that.
That's all right. But like for a rookie to get called out like that, or a second-year guy to get called out like that, and then he steps up and he scores 12 points, 5 rebounds, defends really well. When he was coming off the bench, he had to defend the Tatums and the Browns as well. And so for him to kind of slow those guys down was a big deal. But a lot of positive response from a maturity standpoint. But again, I think the biggest, game 1 to game 2 in that stretch deal was having Andrew Nembhard back.
How long before your playing boards? Like 20 or 40 minutes?
I got a little bit over an hour. I got an 11:30 flight.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. So we're going to take a quick break. And Dustin Dopirak, the Pacers beat writer for the Indy Star, with us now. We'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after these messages from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com. Enjoy healthy, delicious meals at home without the hassle with the Fresh Fork. Chef-curated, ready-made meals delivered right to your doorstep. Proudly fueling IU athletes and now available to you with a menu that's always fresh and diverse, from hearty proteins to fresh salads. The Fresh Fork empowers you to make better food choices without compromising. Let the Fresh Fork help transform your lifestyle for a healthier way of living today at thefreshforkonline.com. Use promo code RADIO20 and get $20 off of your first order. Hungry for something a little different? Well, head to the Rusty Gator Fork and Ale in Bedford, where oceanic flavors meet southern charm with a Cajun flair, like their loaded voodoo fries, gator bites, or jambalaya, and so much more. The Rusty Gator also has live music each Friday and Saturday night with some of the best local and regional artists around. Visit the Rusty Gator Fork and Ale in Bedford and get your Cajun on. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Monday of New Year's week, coming to you from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. The great Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star with us, and just talked about the Pacers and a great win for them last night as they win in Boston. Switching over a little bit to college football, Penn State's James Franklin says Nick Saban should be college football's commissioner. And I laugh at that a little bit because he is Mr. SEC. You've already got Greg Sankey, who's half a commissioner of Division I football. So, yeah, will college football, though, need a commissioner of sorts? Because the NCAA does not run the tournament, the college football championship. That is who actually runs that? Is that just a separate? It's like a separate. The NCAA is made up of people that the colleges, the universities, kind of all adhere to and put them in charge, and the CFP is kind of a similar thing but different.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is though that that's what they want. Like that's what the institutions want. They chose a long time ago to not put the NCAA in charge of determining its championship, and that. And so
because the March Madness is such a terrible tournament.
Yeah, right. Obviously, no. I mean, and I think like a lot of it comes back to the bowl games. I mean, they've been so woven into the history, but there's also there's the one part that's part of what the Rose Bowl and the Orange Bowl and the pageantry and everything and sort of the history and tradition that we're used to. But there's also a whole bunch of people who get paid off of that, and that basically create jobs off of that. And there are full industries based on these bowl games. And so in part because of that, in part because of other things, they did not involve the NCAA basically in that. And, basically as even as the tournament really built itself bigger, they still didn't say to themselves, well, let's do the same thing in college football. They liked keeping that separate. I mean, I guess it kept, the NCAA out of places where those schools didn't want them. The schools, the conferences, the bowl games, everybody else, basically having in the NCAA not govern that was, their decision, was their call. And so it stayed that way. And so you've had this strange hodgepodge way of determining championships for as long as we've been watching college football. And obviously it's been changing and different from year to year, going back to the old bowl process where basically the AP and the coaches decided who the championship was after the champions were after the bowl games. The addition of the BCS, where there was the Bowl Alliance. Remember that one before the Big Ten and the Pac-10 and the Rose Bowl even got involved. And for a while, they wouldn't play as part of the playoffs. I mean, you've seen this evolution, but you've seen this investment in these different governing bodies. And the playoff is not part of the NCAA. It doesn't have an office in the NCAA. It is separate entirely, but there are certainly NCAA folks or people that are, at schools that are NCAA institutions, making these decisions. So, like not having being all of one complicates things, but on some level they've decided to have it complicated rather than just put it in the hands of the NCAA. So, these teams have built this strangeness for themselves, and the time determined that was what they wanted. I mean, it goes back to my thing about people complaining about the NCAA as though these are just a bunch of unelected bureaucrats who make all these decisions. The schools make these decisions, and they create the NCAA as the scapegoats for those decisions because they have to enforce the laws that the schools have determined, basically. And so it's an easy people for them to blame for it as if they didn't come up with these ideas themselves. That's kind of a long deal there. But yeah, I mean, there's not a governing body, and they're seeing all of this weird stuff come down on their heads, the transfer portal, NIL, everything. That's why they're sort of begging for Congress to give them something to make everything make sense. But the playoff is what it is. It's not, it's not the least of their worries, but there's way worse stuff that they're dealing with. But I get the idea of wanting a commissioner. I get the idea of wanting somebody who's been through it to step up and be the person that's involved. As you said, Nick Saban is going to be SEC biased, but I think James Franklin wants somebody who's football coach biased, regardless of what conference he's from. I think they want somebody they can look at and say, this is a person who understands what it means to be a football coach. And they want it to be driven that way to make those guys' lives easier. And they're more willing to deal with an SEC bias when it comes to the playoff than they are not having someone who really, really gets what it's like to be in those shoes making some of those decisions. They would if they got to deal with a bias somewhere, they would rather have the bias of the experience of being a football coach than worry about whether that bias is regional or not.
And I understand all of that, and it all makes sense. But the one issue is the bias, and the bias is there without question, because I guarantee you, if Nick Saban had the opportunity, a team like Indiana would not have been in this year, and Alabama would have been. And I think that's a joke because I don't care who they beat. I don't care if they beat the Rams. They lost their last game of the regular season to an Oklahoma team that was terrible, and they couldn't even score against that team. They put up 3 points, and that was their third loss of the season. And I don't think the SEC was as good this year as people think that they were. There's no way to prove that. The Big Ten wasn't great. They were good at the top, but then boy, did it drop off. And because of these gigantic conferences now, the Big Ten has 18. The SEC will probably add 2 along the line somewhere. I would guess, surmise. But one of the things that Franklin also said, and I agree with this, if you want to, and I talked Todd Leary, we were talking about this earlier. The timeline of the portal and the spring semester, all of that are huge things, because if these guys want to change teams but yet stay and finish the season, they're going to have to move the timeline, which means probably eliminating conference championships. And I wonder, what's the point of a conference championship now when you've got an Indiana team that was 11-1, but did not play either team that was in the conference championship. So is that a true conference champion? I don't think so. And it has nothing to do with Indiana. That's just an example, because that can happen in any conference.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think so. That kind of goes to it. Like, obviously, I don't think, even if you had a commissioner, I don't think the commissioner would be the entire playoff committee. I mean, I think there would still be a committee.
Oh, right.
And I mean, the presumption, I imagine, on Franklin's part and anybody else who would be on board for this would be that it would be driven by football coaches as opposed to athletic directors or ex-players or media or ex-media or whoever. I don't even know who's all on the committee. I mean, I think it's mostly athletic directors and presidents and stuff like that, and some coaches.
A couple of former coaches and a couple of former players, admins.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the idea, again, if you're Franklin and everybody else, is you want it to be coach driven, and so even if Saban's got a blind spot or a bias, he would create a committee that would have some other regional things to offset that, and maybe Nick Saban wins all the arguments and Nick Saban ends up making it the SEC Invitational. But all the same, you would have to presume that there would be that's involved in the thinking. But to your point with the portal, that's more of what they're interested in. The playoff matters and the selection matters, and they'll fight over that. But what they're really thinking of is how their job goes and what their year is like, and keeping guys on their team and figuring out how much they have to pay them, just creating a functional environment to create a football team. That I think is what they're most interested in. They'll deal in terms of like the playoff is like cross that bridge when you come to it. Like, worry about keeping a functional environment for creating a football team first, and believing that Nick Saban is a guy that understands how that works and how that looks. And I imagine they like the fact that Saban doesn't love NIL. And that they're going to be, that he's going to be sort of more philosophically opposed there. That's the bias that someone like James Franklin is more looking for, and most coaches in general. It seems like the general space, in terms of where everybody is on this, is that it's one thing that these guys get paid, but adding that with the portal and having to re-recruit and basically resell all of your players every year with their NIL deal is becoming untenable. And it's reaching the point that you can't govern a roster anymore. And I get that. And so I think that's sort of where they are standing and saying, like, we need somebody who understands this. The idea that Saban seems to be kind of leaning opposed to that is sort of where you go. But I mean, I imagine if this happened, first off, he would actually have to want to do it. Someone would have to want this job. And those are jobs that create a lot of headaches, and and
he's 70 something years old and has a cush job with college football game day.
Right. Throwing off a nomination in a press conference does not mean the guy's going to take it. Does not mean the guy wants it. The guy doesn't mean the guy is even and it's also a nice way of James Franklin saying it gets him some good comments from Nick Saban. Be like, oh, I appreciate that, James. Thank you.
And it started with Lane Kiffin.
Yeah. So if Lane did it and then Franklin did it, then it's like, okay, like all of those guys. I mean, Lane's an ex, Saban guy. Saban basically resurrected his career. And so, like there's a little bit of genuflecting going on there. I get all of these things, but I mean, I think if you're Franklin or anybody, you're trying to at least get that idea in the headspace and saying, whether it's Saban or whether it's whoever, but just get somebody in charge of all of it who's been a coach. And again, that's the bias they want. They want the bias of a guy who's done their job. And so I get that. And again, like the regional bias they can live with. Like they're not thinking of this how fans think of it. They're thinking of it how they think of it. They're thinking about what they're asking themselves is, what would make my job easier and more, and because they're starting to believe it is not tenable, and they are looking around, and the guys that are leaving the profession, whether it's basketball or football, there are people coming to this conclusion that they can't do this job anymore, and they want somebody who looks and sees that.
But
and
I wonder if some of that's
painful.
disingenuous. Especially Jim Larinaga just jumps at the top. And I'm like, dude, you were the first to benefit from NIL until you weren't benefiting from NIL. Please don't cry for me, Argentina. Nick Saban is another one. I'm not going to make accusations, but I don't have to. Jimbo Fisher acknowledged as a former assistant. Everybody knows what was going on in the SEC. It was rampant. And now that they don't have that advantage, funny how it's time to get out. So I'm like, so some of that is I find to be disingenuous. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. I don't know. But it doesn't matter because it is here the way it is here. And even with the upcoming, there are more changes coming where the schools will begin paying out of this $20 million fund where everybody will have. But that does not mean these NIL co-ops are going away, except for Indiana's is going away. Why? I don't know. But Hoosiers for Good is going to cease operation. Now, I would assume that Hoosiers Connect is not, which is an arm of theirs, which reached out directly to it was more fan related, whereas Hoosiers for Good was mainly industry, not industry, but companies. They would go after the big companies for their donations. So I don't understand what's going on there because I haven't heard of any other of those dissolving at other places. So I'm curious as to why, but I'll keep trying to look into that. But it's going to be different. But places like Ohio State, they're gonna pay out of that $20 million, but that's to everybody that they have to pay. And football team alone is already paying that probably.
Yeah, I mean, I go way back with Larinaga. I mean, I remember I covered James Madison when he was at Mason, so I've known Jim for a long, long time. Not that like he texted me or asked me if he should leave or whatever. We're not that close, but I think so yes, I mean, obviously that stands out. They went and got Nigel Pack for God knows how much money. And it's just like obviously
for 2 years.
Yeah. But it's just like the number that like even where that was, it's so far past that now.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think if you're just like, and like obviously that was one of the big accelerants. That was one of the big moments for me that told me like, okay, like they don't have a handle on this and they're not going to, and it got so far beyond what we thought it was going to be so fast. And it's very difficult to govern. And I get that it's like, okay, like when you're talking about $1 million, kind of arms races here, it gets tough. And so like, it's tough for the collectives to maintain that. And like my original thought with it was like, okay, like they're going to have to show return on investment. Basically, it's like that if you're going to give these kids ads, like let these kids be in ads or whatever, like those companies that are doing that are going to have to see that it's worth their time, but they don't. Like, I mean, I think that even starting with John Ruiz, that was the moment where I was like, oh, they don't have to show a return here at all. Like, that doesn't matter one bit. If they just give money to these kids, it doesn't matter. And then you get these collectives and everybody's pulling their money together. It doesn't matter if there's a return. Those kids don't have to sell anything. Like, maybe they do an ad, maybe they don't, but it doesn't matter. Like, it's not relevant. It's just they're throwing money at these kids. And I think probably one of the reasons why Hoosier for Good would be disbanding, and I don't know, I haven't been following this. Zach Osterman, my boy Zach has been way into this. But, I mean, I know Fred Glass was involved in that collective at the beginning. And part of Fred's driving force was believing, hey, you can turn this into charitable work. And it's like, well, what's even the point? Like, I mean, if you can get them to do that, great. But it's like, okay, like, what, this money is just being given to kids, what's really the incentive to make them do anything at this point beyond playing football? And so it's like,
it looked good on paper.
Right. I mean, it looked good on paper, again, like, Fred Glass is the CEO of Gleaners now. Like, that's what Fred does, is he gives, food out to the underprivileged. Like, let's not act like Fred doesn't put his money where his mouth is when it comes to this stuff. But, like, that type of idea was like, oh, like, hey, here's a way to make this work for your community. But it's like, this thing is so big now that it's like, again, like, it's hard to make that a driving force. I mean, certainly Anthony Leal's been able to do a lot of things with this. There were some other people that have really invested themselves in making sure that they were turning this into charitable work. But the number's so big now to not do that, like to not have that string attached to it. So it's almost like, man, like you're competing in a realm that's not yours anymore, that you can't even make a difference in. So, like, I understand the hypocrisy, but it's like it is going so fast that it's almost like I wonder how it keeps up. I mean, like, you have to wonder where it's like a bubble, like in the economic
like the
sense.
2007-8 bubble.
I mean, something like that. That's a different ball game. Like mortgage, stuff is a different level. But like,
there has to be a line in it. Yes, there has to be
a certain point where there's not
correction
the money.
Point.
Yes. At a certain point, there's not the money to cover this. Like there has to reach a point that there's not enough money to cover this. That like the cash isn't there, and it's just like, where is that line? I think is kind of the question. Like, where are we getting to the point where we're talking about a lot of athletes. This is a huge number. Where does the money not back this? And I think everybody's trying to figure out where that is exactly.
Absolutely. What's up? Where you're coming back on your way back from Boston now after the Pacers dispatch the Celtics in a huge win last night. Now they come back home for a game, an afternoon game, New Year's Eve afternoon, baby.
Thankfully.
Afternoon delight.
Thankfully.
You get to celebrate New Year's Eve tomorrow night.
Exactly. So yeah, very, very key there. Wife would not have been happy if they were doing like a 7:00 tip on New Year's. That would have sucked. But yeah, get to do New Year's Eve. They're going to Miami on January 2nd. That's a trip that's a little bit beyond us because that's crazy expensive. But they'll come back, play Phoenix on the 4th. I'll go to Brooklyn on the 6th when they play the Nets. A lot of back and forth trips coming up here in the month of January. Sadly, I will not be going to Paris when they go there later in January to play the Spurs.
I think that's crap. They should be.
So do I, Jim. So do I. But alas, that trip I will not be making, but it'll be fun otherwise. So a lot of fun stuff coming up for these guys.
Well, we are always grateful to have you here, brother, and I wish you and the wife and Maxine a happy New Year.
Absolutely. Happy New Year to you, Jim.
Dustin Dopirak, so gracious to join us from the Boston airport today. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. And that's going to wrap it up. Man, it's been a good Monday, a good start to the New Year's week. Tomorrow, New Year's Eve, we will be here with a show. We will return. No show on New Year's Eve, of course, but last week we took off both days. That's a rarity, so we'll do one tomorrow, though, for you. And looking forward to it. Cannot wait. Big thanks to everybody, especially each and every one of you. Without you, we have no reason to be here. We're back tomorrow to do it all again. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.